This has just turned into a wonderful Christmas.
Well, Christmas isn't over yet, Frank.
Well, see, I talked to my dad on the phone, and he wants you to stay here until you get a job and get back on your feet.
I don't know what to say.
Say yes. I'd love to have new neighbors.
But it might take a while finding a new job. We could wear out our welcome.
Don't worry, Zack wore out his welcome a long time ago. And he's still here.
I just wanted to let you know about my study group.
Oh, don't be a fuddy-duddy. I'll be your study buddy.
I'm about to embark on one of the great challenges of my scientific career.
This work right here is going to change history.
I think this is going to be our greatest mission.
I don't have time to study. I'll never get into Stanford.
I got big plans for you tonight. I got maps, I got charts. I'm going to see you through this because my credibility is on the line.
It's at this point that you'll want to start taking notes.
Welcome to the Sitcom Study, the podcast where we contemplate the TV shows we grew up with and search for the truth and wisdom within the tropes and cliches. And Amy, what's the trope we're talking about tonight?
I'll be homeless for Christmas.
Yes, we are already making light of the very, very serious subject matter that several sitcoms decided to tackle over the years. Christmas episodes where we befriend a homeless person and invite them into our homes and our lives.
Because there's nothing
like
like the downtrodden to teach us and make us remember about the spirit of the season.
Yeah. So just like last week, we've got that disclaimer up front. This is heavy real life stuff. And we're going to do our best to be more credible and respectful about it than these sitcoms were.
But already failing.
Yeah. So this is where I'll start. I think you and I both have the same general arc of life in the sense that we grew up in suburban situations that were very sort of not super affluent or anything, but sort of sheltered from the grim realities of the world.
Basically idyllic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then as adults at different times, we moved to major urban centers. Yeah. We experienced all the things that living in big cities gives you, such as being very up close and personal with extreme poverty and homelessness and panhandling and the whole shot. And now we are back in a sort of sheltered suburban world. And I know for myself, that is one of the huge differences, is not on a daily basis being asked for money by unfortunate people, seeing, all kinds of very unfortunate situations just, on my way to work on a daily basis. But what I'm going to ask is stuff like this, cheesy sitcom episodes in the 80s, do you think that was your first sort of exposure to this whole idea of being homeless?
I don't know. Probably. I mean, probably just because when we lived in proximity to New York City, I wasn't old enough to have any memory of that. And then after that, we definitely were always in the suburbs. It was something that I would see once I got older in real life and started going into cities. And so I've always had a really hard time because my exposure to this situation is all of these sitcoms where the people who they're featuring are down on their luck, are unhoused for reasons of, economic instability and not necessarily drug abuse, addiction, and mental illness.
Yes.
None of that. We don't touch on any of that drug abuse or mental illness or addiction in any of these episodes. And so for me, just like a lot of the kids in our episodes, I think when I first started encountering people on the street who were begging for money, I was like, oh my God, we've got to get them in the car and we have to give them a place to stay until they can get back on their feet. Let's give them lots of money and wasn't aware of this balancing act that I think Zack Morris talks about for a second, and all the adults in every one of these episodes get these really big eyes and fake smiles because they have the uncomfortable knowledge that a lot of times unhoused people choose to be that way, and don't want your help. And then, and so like I had to learn the lesson the hard way by getting yelled at by people who were begging for money to be like, no, I don't want the flyer about the mission down the street. Like, I know about the mission down the street. I'm fine. I just need a hamburger.
Yeah, you're touching on a couple of the big things that sort of hang over this episode, and similar again to the alcohol situation. I feel like this is one where my mind is flipping back and forth between really appreciating the message that the sitcoms are giving and the sort of awareness they're trying to give to their young audiences, and at the same time, really butting up against some of the naivete and the sort of incorrectness. What you said about the sort of realities of a lot of unhoused people that it doesn't touch upon, I think another sort of thing in that mix is that 3 out of 4 of these shows portray the homeless people as being white, which is absolutely a real thing, and definitely more so in certain parts of the country, the sort of hillbilly elegy world that we're not as familiar with. Here on the East Coast, the sort of overlap between race and socioeconomics is very, very strong, and certainly not all, but most of the sort of people below the poverty line are not white around here. And so that plays as a little weird. And frankly, the only time that they do have a person of color be the homeless person is the Family Matters episode, where the whole cast is a person of color. And
well, but also I think that is probably, like, in hindsight, a good choice, right? Because if you're a Growing Pains and you never have people of color on the show, the only representation you're going to have is the homeless guy.
This is the same problem that Seinfeld would run into all the time. They would, when they have homeless people pull Kramer's rickshaw in a silly subplot, they have to portray them as white. This is the problem you back yourself into when your entire cast is white and you have no representation of anybody except white people. Then you are backed into a corner when you need to present, anybody on the fringes of society. This is the dilemma that Seinfeld had when Kramer had to hire, or decided to hire, homeless people to pull his rickshaw or something, or when they would show like a criminal in the subway car, and they always have to portray those people as white no matter what, because there are no black or Hispanic or any other characters on the show. And so it ends up being uncomfortable either way. And so, yes, the only way to solve that is to have other ethnicities be in your show in the first place, and then you don't have to worry about the entire representation of a people falling on the shoulders of this one character. So yes, there is no real right answer for that. What you're saying about just the mental illness, the systemic poverty, just all of the realities that make these portrayals of homeless people in these shows, look, everyone's story is different. Somewhere this has happened.
Absolutely.
A computer salesman lost his job and became homeless. But yeah,
isn't that the plot of the Will Smith movie?
Yeah, that is true. The Pursuit of Happiness. But yeah, the truth is most of the people that we see in these situations are just so far removed from what we see in these sitcoms that, again, I think it's a worthwhile message for kids, but for adults, you kind of go like, geez, you're not really providing any like useful information here. The other thing I'll throw out, when you say, oh, the adults in the episodes, they sort of know about, oh, maybe they're going to use the money for alcohol or whatever. I'd say there's another thing that is being shown in these episodes, and I don't know how intentional it is, which is the idea of NIMBYism, right? Not in my backyard.
Exactly.
The idea of like this cognitive dissonance between the things you're in favor of and the abstract. Oh, everybody should have a place to live. Nobody should have so much more money than somebody else. That's not right. But then, sort of changing your colors when you realize, oh, it's, they're building it next door to me, or it's going to impact my life.
No, it is a perfect example of the ways that as a society we teach our children certain things by not saying it, right? Like these episodes, the scripts, what they're saying is, hey, kids, make sure that you look out for one another. You know, the holidays aren't just about getting presents. They're about giving back. They're about, you know, caring for people and giving back to humanity and thinking about those who are less fortunate at a time of year where you are abundantly fortunate. And then the kid goes and does the thing that their parents tell them to do. And the parents are like, yee!
Well, and here's how I think it plays differently then and now is I think the intention of the sitcoms, and we're talking specifically about Growing Pains and Family Matters, where this same exact thing happens, the scenario you just described. And I think it's meant to be like, oh, isn't it sort of cute and funny how the kid
misunderstood.
Yeah, like they were a little misguided and they
misunderstand.
They took it too far, and like we sort of understand, we as the viewers, like, oh, well, of course they couldn't actually take them into their homes for any number of reasons. And now it almost plays as this sort of satire or exposure of, like I said, the NIMBYism, the hypocrisy, the thing of like, well, they aren't actually willing to share with the less fortunate, are they?
Right.
You know?
Right. And look, all of because they're Christmas episodes, like everything's gonna have the, you know, happy ending. They're all gonna take a different beat on that, you know, turn the corner at the end to have there be some sort of very, you know, they know they're dealing with a very special episode. I mean, and so, except for the Family
Matters episode is going to end with several huge question marks that really kind of rock my world.
The Family Matters episode definitely goes in a different direction.
Yeah.
And so I, like, upon, you know, now, like, hindsight's 2020, right? I'm looking at it being like, oh, this really didn't fit the trope.
No, well,
this would have fit a different trope.
In some ways, though, it did so perfectly, though. Little Richie's bringing home Ben, the homeless man, is a direct echo of the Growing Pains thing.
Oh,
but
where
then, yes.
Ben brings home a different unhoused
but
person.
Then it goes in a whole different direction. But okay, let's get into it. What are our shows?
All right. We watched for the first time ever on the podcast, and the first time I have ever watched Barney Miller. Yeah. Season 8, episode 7, Homeless. Growing Pains, season 2, episode 9, The Kid. Saved by the Bell, season 3, episodes 24 and 25, Home for Christmas, parts 1 and 2. And Family Matters, season 6, episode 11, Miracle on Elm Street.
Yeah, so starting with Barney Miller, you said it. Season 8, happening in 1981. So this is primarily a show from the 70s about a police captain named Barney Miller.
Yep.
This, if before we embarked on doing this podcast, I wouldn't have been able to tell you the difference, I think, between Barney Miller and Gomer Pyle.
Oh, that's
Except
funny.
I knew one of them from the reference from Full Metal Jacket. But I just knew, like, oh, aren't they both, like, funny, like, policemen or military guys or something?
Yeah, I don't know that I knew this was a police show.
This is Brooklyn Nine-Nine, basically, for the 70s.
That's the exact reference. And I was unprepared for how much it was done like a play, right? So the episodes are they were saying that, like, when I was doing research for it, they were saying in season 1, the idea was that you would spend a little bit more time, like, in Barney Miller's life outside of the precinct. We did know his wife. We had, you know, seen or heard of his kids in early seasons. And then in season 2, the woman who played his wife asked to be written out because she was, like, getting no airtime and wanted to be released to go do other shows where she could, you know, make more money and be on television more. The whole show, it takes place, for the most part, there's only, I think they said 12 or 13 episodes out of 170 episodes where they go outside the precinct and you see them on the street doing normal, you know, cop things or whatever. But this is a Greenwich Village. This is Greenwich Village in the 70s, which is nothing like Greenwich Village now, where all the celebrities live and it's too pricey to even get a studio there.
This in general would be at the height. We're talking about 70s to early 80s, absolute height of New York as a, you know, quote unquote urban hellscape.
Yeah.
Certain aspects of that characterization are problematic. Other aspects are extremely true. Highest crime rate ever, just all kinds of rampant drugs and, every subway car covered with graffiti, just that whole vibe.
Right. And so Barney Miller, it all centers around this group of detectives who are on the second or possibly third floor, depending on which episode you watch of this precinct. And they are all plainclothes detectives, right? They talk often throughout the series about the uniforms downstairs. It is shot though like a play. It's all in this detective's office, and the dialogue is snappy. I mean, it's very realistic in terms of the way it would be at a workplace where things are happening and people are talking and it's hustling and bustling. And I was like, I said to Jay when we finished the show, I was like, I was not expecting to like that as much as I did.
Yeah, for one thing, it's the only one of these shows we're talking about that's made for adults. And this is very much from that time where, like, they're not even thinking about making it for kids. This is probably, trying to compete with like Taxi and those kind of shows. It's a bunch of, shaggy old guys in a workplace. And,
it was shot on videotape, which you can see.
Oh, yeah.
It looks so much like those Norman Lear shows because of the graininess.
I think all the shows we're talking about are shot on video until Family Matters, and it looks like a Paul Thomas Anderson masterpiece, compared to the other ones for that reason. But yes, this is, crappy old video. And just that opening theme sequence made me realize that it might have been kind of harder to time out those things. Like if they did those on like old editing bays and stuff, they don't have everything on the computer now, because the little shots of people like, doing a little action and then smiling for the camera and then their name pops up were so awkwardly long and weird.
And the names, that was the thing I noticed about the opening credits on this too. The names didn't pop up until very late. It was like, why didn't they pop up sooner?
Maybe, if you want to be cynical, you could say they're just making the theme sequence long so they didn't have to make as much show. But for whatever reason,
it was very long.
It felt like you were looking at the secretary typing for like 12 seconds and then it would be like Francis McElhoney or something.
Yes.
But yeah, okay, so let's get to it. This episode is going to be all about, I don't know if he's a recurring character or not, but Bruno, who is this, very familiar character actor. You know who this guy is.
Yeah, his name's Stanley Brock. I've seen him in things before. I could not, like, if he was in a lineup, I would be like, that guy's an actor, but I couldn't tell you what he was in.
I thought he was Robert Protsky, who from the Michael Mann movies in the 70s and The Last Action Hero in the 90s, but he's the guy, he's from UHF. Yeah. He's like the boss or like the grandpa or something.
Right, and he's legitimately in one episode of every show we love. Like, he was in an episode of Charles in Charge, Quantum Leap.
One of those guys.
Yeah, exactly. He was in 4 episodes of Night Court as 3 different characters. He played Santa Claus on a different world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's just one of these dudes that, like, if you grew up when we grew up, you saw him in everything.
Yeah. So long story short, he's Bruno. He's a shopkeeper, and he has alerted the police to this guy that he thinks is stealing or vandalizing his store or whatever. Speaking of wacky character actors, this guy is the hitman from Weekend at Bernie's.
Yes, he is.
Who successfully kills Bernie, but thinks he's still alive and spends the rest of the movie trying to kill him again. Another familiar face, another guy born to play weird, mental patients and whatnot.
This guy has kind of bugged out eyes and like a weird nose, and so he always plays these kind of off-kilter characters.
Yes, definitely. And he's this guy that they've brought in because this
Bruno Bender, who is known to the precinct as being like a local shopkeeper asshole.
Yeah, they all kind of know him.
They're like, oh, what are you in for this time,
right,
Bruno?
He's always complaining probably about various things. And so they've got this guy, not even in a holding cell. I think they've just got him there. And this is going to be the first of many instances throughout our episode where we get the person's sort of tragic story emerging, right? I think we don't even get it directly from him. I feel like one of the police detectives are explaining to another, he's one of all of these people that got kicked out of this $25 a week hotel.
Yeah.
And now there's like all of these people that are recently homeless.
Right. And we don't find out that that's his backstory right away.
Yeah.
It sort of comes out in dribs and drabs
Yeah.
in several of these episodes. And the way they do it is, the reason they do it is because they're trying to show that the person who is in this situation is embarrassed about it and isn't trying to say like, oh, I live on the street, what do you mean? And so he has been sleeping in this, it's like a camping store, like an outdoor.
So he's sleeping in a tent.
Exactly.
And he's just been waking up, like he's been doing it for weeks, and he wakes up early enough normally so the shopkeeper doesn't see him. They broach the issue of a homeless shelter at one point. He says he doesn't want to sleep with bums, and that gets like a laugh from the audience, you know.
And but that is the thing, right? This show is, and all the others, they don't echo this same statement because the other ones are for kids and they're telling a different story, but they are very clearly, all of these shows are sort of drawing a line between the people that you and I were talking about earlier that are on the street because of mental illness, on the street because of addiction, on the street because they choose to be, like they're all of those people, they're considered the quote unquote bums that this guy's talking about. He's like, I'm not a bum. I have a job. I just don't have a place to live right now because of circumstances.
Right. And this is where, this is the part that I say, my mind keeps flipping back and forth, because on the one hand, what the shows are trying to do, it's almost like the shows are presuming a mindset where the audience thinks of all homeless people as these ne'er-do-wells with no inner life. And so the show is trying to tell you, no, they could have had a normal life like you at some point, and then something happened beyond their control, and this created that circumstance. And so it's good for them to humanize people like that. But just like you're saying, on the other hand, it is just weirdly overlooking really the vast majority of situations where there are all these sort of systemic issues and the person never did have a chance at a normal life. And they're just kind of that's too complicated. Let's stick to this.
We have no way to solve the mental health crisis that may be at hand. And what I think is really interesting, because especially, a lot of these shows like this since 81, our other shows are 86, 91, 94. So this is all in the run up to a Clinton presidency, early 90s, right? Where food stamps changes into this SNAP benefits thing, or maybe that may have happened maybe call it SNAP a little bit later. But there was at some point while we were growing up that this idea of these people who are just economically disadvantaged, they don't have, maybe they're living in their car, maybe they're hopping from hotel to hotel. These people, they are all still existing in today's day and age. And they have become this sort of, and I think what they're trying to point out here is that, in these episodes, they are silent, homeless. They're not the, ne'er-do-well bums that you would normally think of, but it still exists in this day and age. As a teacher who worked at, schools who have primarily, disadvantaged students, they were always one step ahead of the landlord. There were always families that were kind of moving from house to house, or from friend's couch to friend's couch, or from hotel to car, back to hotel. And that still exists. And because SNAP benefits are on a debit card now, and it doesn't look like you're going to the grocery store and paying for food stamps, these people are still silently homeless, right? Yeah. And that is still a thing that exists in our culture. And it's still a hidden thing because we have social networks in place, we've got these social safety nets in place that will help, but it is not an easy life, and they are one step away from having the mental illness or the drug addiction or the just regular addiction, because Lord knows when everything's this hard, you definitely turn to escapism, right?
Well, not to mention that, this whole idea of having people to stay with and everything. Again, these shows sidestep the idea that portraying these homeless people as these kind, mild-mannered, intelligent people, but they never address why don't don't they have any other family and friends? And again, it's because the truth is, in reality, people are coming from systemic situations where they're not like teaching you how to tie your tie,
Right.
But yeah, this,
this guy, though, he does have like a whole social, a whole like network of people, because all of them, like you were saying, got kicked out of this hotel.
And they're all
at the
coming
same
to
time.
the precinct.
Yeah. And it was, what you were talking about, like the great resurgence of New York City was that all these developers came in and turned these flop houses into condominiums and apartments that, other people wanted to rent.
Are you talking about J57?
I am talking
the specific zoning law that is mentioned in this sitcom?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is, all the credit to turning New York around and all of these things that we know happened in real life. There were consequences to that. And some of the consequences were people like this who had a house, who had a place to live, no longer could afford to live in the city anymore because of developers coming in, which was basically exactly, not to put too fine a point on it, that is what happened to us. We didn't get priced out of a $25 a week or whatever place, but like in order to be able to have a 2-bedroom apartment in a place that was still commutable to my former work, we were looking at $7,000 a month in rent.
Yes, but I've been on both sides of that. We are also gentrifiers.
Oh,
we
totally.
lived in neighborhoods that were unsafe in the 70s and 80s and were revamped and rezoned, and people were kicked out and the drug kingpins were arrested and they built up nicer apartments and everything. So yes, this episode is very specifically calling out gentrification. They call Mr. Wexler from the Human Resources Administration, right? Basically, in the middle of this episode, despite being for adults, they do sort of break down this very basic, like, oh my gosh, there are homeless people. They start throwing around statistics. They go like, did you know that there are over 50,000 homeless people in this city alone? Like, it is a little weird that all of these policemen that live and work in Lower Manhattan are like, seem to be coming to grips with the concept of homelessness, like at this moment.
Right.
They call this guy, he comes in.
And that they aren't jaded to it already.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. They're like, oh my God, you're right. It's like they don't have any place to live. And so as all these homeless people are accumulating at their precinct and essentially almost doing this little sort of sit-in.
Well, so they're protesting, right? Like they've heard. So this guy, like the one detective had said, this guy was part of this hotel and there was a lot of people that were living in this hotel. He gets kicked out, and they are all trying to find different places around the city, and they're helping each other out when they find a place to live, or if somebody gets in any kind of trouble, right? Mm-hmm. So all of the people who know this man are coming down to the precinct, and they're basically protesting. They're protesting outside. There's a few people who are coming in, trying to get him released, trying to bail him out, do whatever.
You don't get the sense that they're like protesting with signs. It's more like they're just like sort of causing trouble. And
they're all
in the way.
sitting on the steps. And so nobody can get in and out because they're just there. And then they've moved into the lobby and they're kind of doing the same thing. They're like, we don't have a place to stay. We contribute to society. We all have jobs, but we don't have a place to live. And now you're arresting us because you're arresting one of us because he had found a dry place to sleep.
Yeah.
No.
And they're all saying like, hey, this place is warm and it's a roof over our heads. So why don't we just stay here and, make your life difficult since we have no place to go? So yeah, they call in this pencil pusher from the administration, and he sort of he comes in, he's all disheveled and jaded. And he's just like, yeah, what do you want me to tell you? We got thousands of these people. We got nothing to do. Like, I wish I had something else to tell you.
He eventually says, oh, it's great. I found a shelter that has space and can take, 14 of you in the Catskills.
Yes.
And Barney Miller's like, what? And he's like, the Catskills, which is very far away from New York City for all of our non-local listeners. And he's like, oh, and by the way, you have to find your own transportation there. And so everybody's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, so that's useless. And then they end up getting snowed in, overlapping trope, like our Snowed In for Christmas podcast. And yeah, basically, like over the course of this time, the original shopkeeper has, started to soften as everybody, whether they like it or not, is starting to get to know each other. They're spending all this time together in the precinct. We're learning more about Ed, the original homeless guy, the guy from Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah.
And
who's like, hey, man, thanks. Like, your store's been great. Like, and then the shopkeeper realizes he was never there to steal anything. The sleeping bag that he had under his arm was actually his own sleeping bag.
Yeah. And so they all they say the city's shutting down. It's snowing. Everyone's, bridges and tunnels are closing. Everyone's snowed in. And so it's sort of the shopkeeper tells Barney Miller, he goes, why don't you turn that potato head over there loose? Talking about the homeless guy he had arrested. So he's basically saying, I'm dropping charges. And then I think he even invites him over to his house.
He does.
Right?
He has a whole, he goes on a whole Scrooge journey, just like we're going to get in Saved by the Bell.
Yeah.
He is there. His wife comes in. Everyone's apologizing to his wife. And she's like, why does everybody always say that? Because he's such a gruff, pain in the ass. She finally bails him out, and they live in the neighborhood, so they are going to be able to get home because they can just walk through the snow to their apartment, which isn't that far away. And so, so he's like, hey, Ed, why don't you just come with me? Why don't you stay with us until you get back on your feet? We've got this, we've got an extra room. The kids have moved away now. It's just us. Come on. And so he's like, all right, let's go. And then I think that his girlfriend also comes with him, right?
Yes, they go. And then the rest of them spend the night at the precinct. And it ends on this sort of it's a shot of the window from the exterior, and you hear them all saying goodnight to each other.
Right. They're doing
the Waltons.
Yeah, the John Boy. And they're like, no, they're making fun of each other for doing that joke because the joke is so played out already.
Yeah. And so it's kind of like, we don't get any definitive resolution. We just get everybody being a little more kind and understanding, right? We don't know what's really going to become of any of these people the next day, but it seems like the police are sort of saying yeah, right, let's all kind of have a sleepover,
right. At least for one night you can be warm. We recognize that our government, our systems have no solution for you. The guy who has showed up, his whole arc is that he lives in Bridgeport in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And with the train shut down, he's now stuck in the city for the night too, and he's freaking out because he's like, oh my gosh, it's Christmas Eve, I've got to get home to my family. So everybody kind of experiences that I don't have a place to be, and so that's how they end it.
This has less in common with the other shows we talked about than the rest of them, but it's still got those tropes right off the bat. The not in my backyard mentality, we didn't mention it, but the officers are all organizing presents that they're going to give to orphans or something at the beginning. And so it's sort of driving home. They're doing this dumb thing because that's easy for them. It doesn't involve having to actually deal with any of the people. And then, we're going to get, all of the tropes, the crazy character actor as the homeless person that becomes more and more humanized, getting their tragic backstory, and then eventually having somebody invite them to live with them or at least have dinner. And let's see that trope continue with Growing Pains.
Season 2, Episode 9, The Kid.
Yeah, we've covered Growing Pains a handful of times over the years. Doesn't always hold up that great to me, but here's another chance, right? This starts out with Mike investigating the Christmas presents, sort of magically knowing what they are just by looking at them and shaking them.
He does this thing where he shakes them, he sizes it up, he holds his hand on top, he sniffs the ribbon, and he's able to be underwear, gosh, who wants a shirt? Ugh.
Yeah.
And so that's a fun little joke. My brother and I used to recreate this for many years to come. I'm sure this is where we got it from. I just know that we used to jokingly do this together.
I feel like a lot of of things have this joke, somebody who's able to just shake a present and know what it is.
Yeah.
But he wants a CD player from Crazy Harry's, right? Referencing the famous Crazy Ed's TV commercials.
Oh, see, that's a thing that was only up here. It's not something that this is a cultural reference that you knew the source material for. And I just always thought this was like a funny thing that TV shows
Crazy
did.
Eddie's prices were insane. That was the thing. And so, that's his thing. Mike is very materialistic. In general, it's his job in the show to just always be vain and vapid and horny and selfish and all of the things. He's another Zack Morris, another Ferris Bueller. And so, he wants his CD player.
Carol wants a modem from the same place, and she makes a cookie in the shape of what she says a modem looks like.
Her mom thinks it's a cookie of a bra.
Right, because it does. It looks like...
It's just like two balls connected.
It looks
circles.
it looks like glasses. It looks like something like, you know what I mean? Exactly. But she is saying that that's what a modem looks like. And I was like, never... Did a modem ever look like that?
Maybe it's like the two circles represent two different computers that are communicating with each other. To my knowledge, most of the time, a modem was just a little box.
Right. That's what I thought,
box
too.
That sits next to your computer. I guess it could look like anything.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, at that point, nobody except, computer people were going to know.
Well, she's trying to sell it to her mom by going...
1986.
Yeah, she's going, Mom, if I had a modem, then you could use it to access any database in the world for your writing.
That's right.
So she's...
Because in 1986, we 100% had all these databases online ready to go, right?
And I don't know exactly how that would help her. But
she's a journalist.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so we get the same arc that we're going to get later on Family Matters, where it's Ben, the little kid, who ends up getting the lecture. All the kids are materialistic. They all want these presents. And the dad, Alan Thicke, sits Ben down and basically says, there are little kids starving in China, that you got to be aware that there's all kinds of, there are people with much bigger problems than not having. Do you remember what Ben himself wants?
Oh, I think he just wants toys, right? Isn't he just upset that he's getting clothes, not toys?
Fair enough. And so, the dad gives him the little lecture of some people are less fortunate. And then Ben just kind of goes running outside to play or something.
Yeah, he just goes off. I mean, it's Christmas Eve and it's starting to snow and they're all buzzing around the house making cookies and doing all sorts of, Christmas Eve, pre-Christmas Eve things.
He quickly comes back with another homeless person that he's ready to invite into their house.
Right.
This time we get the person completely bundled up to the point that they're like Kenny from South Park.
Yes,
just
you're only
two little
seeing
eyes
and
in
this
pile of rags.
Exactly. It's reminding me of that chapter in Sideways Stories from Wayside School, Sammy.
Yeah, he was just a rat in a giant
pile of rats, of dead rats or something, when they took all the raincoats off.
Yeah. So we're going to get another sort of, I don't know if this trope recurs. She's a tough cookie. She's a tough nut to crack.
Yeah, she's a runaway. So we've watched an episode of this show before where Dr. Seaver is in, and he is talking to one of the friends who is contemplating killing herself, right? And so he, has these moments where he just is like, hey, I work with troubled kids. Let's have a conversation. I'm noticing something's up. And so anyway, but we get the same exact thing. When this child is revealed, we find out that Ben found her because he was jumping into the dumpster behind the pizza place down the street to do some last minute Christmas shopping.
Yes. And she was looking for discarded pizza.
She was waiting in the dumpster for the guy who owns the place to come throw out the leftover pizza, and that was going to be her dinner. Yeah. And that also is a warm place to sleep in a snowstorm because it's all closed in.
Yeah, we find this all after the act break because it's going to have the same exact thing is going to happen in Family Matters and in Saved by the Bell, that when the homeless person is revealed, there's that dun 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 moment, and then we always go to commercial.
Well, and all the cast does the fake smile, big eye faces where they're like, Ben, what have you done?
Yeah, and then we come back from the commercial and they're in a different room going like, what is this? What have you happened? They're lecturing Ben. Now they've moved on to lecturing him about generosity. Now they're lecturing him about stranger danger.
Right. Like, haven't we told you not to talk to strangers? And he's like, she didn't talk to me. I talked to her. Like, I landed on her and I felt bad. And you said that we needed to be generous. So I invited her home. She was waiting for food. And, and like he 100% learned the lesson from the previous scene. Like, he did exactly what his parents
he learned
told him
it all
to do.
too well.
Right.
I don't know how he even ascertains the gender of this person. I mean, she is literally just completely engulfed.
Because they had spoken.
Okay, fair enough.
And then by that point, right, haven't we heard that her name, like, doesn't she sarcastically say
that's
her
the thing.
name's Nancy Reagan?
That's after the fact. That's not when they first meet her.
Okay.
But then in these subsequent scenes, as everything's kind of coming out, they ask her, we do get a good look at her. She kind of looks like Katie Lang in the 90s.
Yeah, she's got her hair cut short, which this is, again, like, all of this is really kind of real, right? I remember that, you don't want to run away. Like, runaways get hurt. And
Runaway Train by Soul Asylum. That taught us how to live.
Runaway girls in particular, you have to cut your hair short so people think you're a boy. You have to become androgynous so that way you don't get raped on the street.
Yeah, it is. Yes, her being a runaway does make it different in a lot of ways than these other ones. Just in the sense that, like, I don't know, she starts out as like a run-of-the-mill homeless person and you're getting the same sort of arc of like, oh my God, how could you bring this person home? Yeah. And then it sort of turns into almost like a makeover episode. Because
not really, but I mean, they give her clothes, they give her a shower and all of this, and then they are all getting dressed up for Christmas dinner.
Yes,
so Carol,
very dressed up.
Or Christmas Eve dinner. I said to Jay during the episode, I'm like, have you ever like had full formal wear with just your family in the house?
For the nuclear family at home having Christmas dinner.
Christmas Eve dinner, not even Christmas dinner.
Like you said, she's really surly with them. When they ask her what her name is, she says Nancy Reagan. Yeah. When they ask her, do you want to take a shower? She's like, why don't you take a shower? You know, but she eventually does. And then, the reason why I say makeover is because when they finally sit down to dinner, they do like the she's all that thing of having her come down the stairway.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
She's all dressed up in Carol's clothes, her sort of like weird business casual colonial like look. And,
1980s office lady.
Yeah, but then she sits down and we get that same sort of weird like homeless humor, quote unquote, that we get in all of these subsequent episodes where they make these little jokes about like, sure beats the dumpster.
Even I'm not that hungry.
Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that. The girl we should mention, I guess maybe she's a little calmer in this one. When she talks to Alan Thicke, Jason, the psychiatrist, she's doing full on Jackie, what's the guy from the gangster movies in the 30s? Full on.
Yes, she is. She's got that James Cagney.
Yeah, Cagney.
Sound.
She's going,
like,
what do you say?
Yeah. Like, I mean, she's not that bad, Jay. No,
she
what
is
do you
being
mean?
really
but
extreme.
She is definitely doing like this sort of like old timey New York accent.
She goes, I got better things to do than talk to a shrink. All right, what are you going to call the heat on me or what?
What are you going to call the heat? You're going to call the fuzz?
Yeah.
Like she says it. She has these like names for the cops that she uses, and it just it all sounds very stilted.
We get political when he goes like, oh, I want to help you or something. She's like, oh, let me guess, you're a liberal, you're a Democrat.
Yeah,
and then he
she's
says,
like, so you're a Democrat.
Yeah, and then he says something about like having a lot of money or something. And she goes, oh, a Republican, eh?
Right.
And then he goes, his way of shining her off is at the end of the scene, he goes, by the way, in the last 3 elections, I voted independent. That is worse, Jason Seaver. That's the least helpful thing you could do.
Oh my God, cracking me up. But yes, so they're like, okay, so this was a scene that I was like, I got a little bit uncomfortable. Like, yes, Jason Seaver is a psychiatrist, but he is in his home with a teenage girl runaway in a robe who has just gotten out of a shower.
Yeah.
He excuses his wife from the room so he can have this private conversation with this child, and he closes the door.
Yeah.
And she is immediately like, oh, what's happening here? Like, oh,
It's funny,
I'm
I
keeping her
didn't-
distance. And that whole, like, and then, you know, he does the right thing. He keeps his distance.
That's the thing.
He, like, puts a piece of furniture between them always. So, like, you know, and it's all done okay, but it definitely, I was like,
It freaked me out in that My Two Dads episode when they were sitting on the bed with her. For some reason, I didn't get that same icky feeling because he was so physically far from her. But yeah, I guess it's a little weird that she's in a robe, and why did he need to close the door? I guess it's just to have a private
Exactly. It was
conversation.
the privacy, and you know, he kept the distance and did all the right things, but I was like, I was very aware for her and her reactions in those moments. And I thought that as an actor, she did a good job being like, this is uncomfortable, clutching my robe, trying to stay away from you. At one point, she like scurries across the room, and like goes and kind of leans into
she's
the
like
dresser.
a little wounded animal.
Yeah, like falls down on the ground and like leans into the dresser. Like the whole thing is really, it was like, ugh.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what we find out though is that, you know, this conversation and what he is urging her to do, this is the part that like you would never have this storyline today, right? Kids don't run away from homes just because they feel like they aren't wanted, right?
He basically makes the leap that like, oh, I mean, whatever. He's trying to say all parents love their children, that kind of thing, you know? But yeah, like you're hinting at, he just makes these logical leaps that you couldn't possibly be running away from a dangerous situation or a traumatic.
But this is what I remember growing up in that time. It was that's what we were told about runaways. Runaways just needed a hand to get over whatever it was that they were upset about so they could go back home, right? Like, no, dude, still in Gen X, like our parents were.
I ran away from home
raping
once.
us. You know what I mean? Like, there's a reason, like a drunk dad, like she does at the end of the episode, spoilers, she does call her dad and is like, Dad, it's me, Denise. Yeah, I'm okay.
No, these
How
portrayals led me to run away from home for like 2 hours because I just sort of got it in my head. It was a thing that kids did when they were like
run away
unhappy.
when they're angry. Exactly.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we're sort of jumping all over the place. They have that heart to heart, and he tries to get her to reach back out to her family, etc. She says, "Oh, I don't know." Then we get the dinner scene. If I'm dunking on Carol's style, I will say I think Mike looks great in his skinny tie.
Yeah.
He's got that sort of like, you know, when the 50s were back in the 80s kind of thing.
Ben had a great line. We don't often get like good moments from Ben, so I want to just shout it out. Ben says, as he is coming into the room and he's wearing his Christmas Eve suit and his mom's like, aw, he cuts her off mid-aw and he's like, don't even start, Mom. This suit has weenie written all over it. I laughed out loud. I was like, good timing, little one.
Yes, and Nancy Reagan is dressed like Nancy Reagan in her weird outfits. And so, yeah, I guess the Seaver family, every Christmas Eve, they get dressed up like they're going to a formal event. And then before eating dinner, they each stand up and say what they're thankful for. Not at Thanksgiving, mind you, at Christmas.
At Christmas.
And so, yeah, they all take turns saying what they're thankful for. This girl, we learn her name at the end.
Yeah, she never tells us her name until we hear her on the phone
Denise.
with her dad.
She says her name is Denise. But
Denise.
so she reluctantly participates and says, thank you for taking me in and all that. And yeah, we get the story beat that I'm frankly surprised that more of these episodes didn't do, where they invite her to stay and then she decides to steal everything.
Right.
But yeah, we get in the middle of the night, Denise, aka Nancy Reagan, is filling up a garbage bag with the presents. Little does she know that she's actually stealing fake presents because the parents are going to come down.
They're not fake.
Well, they're decoy presents.
They're not decoy presents. They put the good presents upstairs. They still are real presents. There's still the underwear, the socks. It's just they have like 5 or 6 of the presents that the kids really, really want that they hid in the attic.
Yeah, so she's stolen 1 or 2 of these presents that aren't as exciting to the kids. And then she like sort of scurries away because the parents come down to put out the rest, the good presents that the kids actually want. And she sort of overhears them saying nice things or something.
Saying nice things about their kids. They're like, wow, because Mike and Carol, when Nancy Reagan first arrived, were scandalized, and they were like, get this, like, this girl's gonna steal from us, get her out of the house, who knows, maybe she's a murderer. And like there was another beat that we didn't talk about earlier where Maggie's going to wash the girl's clothes while she is taking the shower and having a conversation with Jason, and a switchblade falls out of one of the pockets, and Jason's like, hey, he talks to her about it and is like, hey, we prefer our guests not be armed at dinner. And she's basically like, well, when you live on the street, like, what the, like, you've got to be. And he's like, fair enough, but I'll keep this until you leave. And she was like, all right, well, I'll leave right now. And then that's how they kind of launch into the whole like runaway conversation. So anyway, so she's like hiding behind, some armoire or something while they're having this conversation like, man, how did we get so lucky? Look, even Carol and Mike came around and said they were thankful. And look at these presents. And there were presents from Carol to Nancy Reagan, from Mike, Ben to Nancy Reagan.
They had somehow last minute gotten these presents that they're going to give to their new friend, Denise. And and the girl is just like in the foyer or right outside or whatever, just like
she's
listening
just hiding
to all
in
this.
the dark behind a piece of furniture, and just is crying. Yeah,
and then she goes when Mike and
Jason and Maggie,
when Jason and Maggie finally leave, she goes, just for our benefit, she goes, who asked him? Who asked him anyway?
Yeah, and then goes back and takes all of the presents.
Yes, and so we get the next morning, the family waking up. Christmas is ruined. There are no presents anywhere. Oh my God, this is the worst case scenario of what we thought could have possibly happened. And then, let's track her down or whatever. And they go outside. Never mind. She only stole the presents a little bit and moved them out to the front door and then dropped them in.
Mike and Ben are like, we have to go find her. And they and then, Maggie and Jason are like, wait, trying to like catch them. And then as they open the door, these snow-covered garbage bags are all sitting on the front porch. She couldn't go through with it, so she, basically got as far as the driveway and then dumped them on the front porch and took
I guess
off.
she felt like she didn't have time to put them back, because if she thought better of stealing, she could have just put everything back and continued to have a nice place to be for a while. But at that point, she was already outside. Like, she knew she had to go. She wanted to get the hell out of there. And so then the last beat that we see is her in a phone booth, all like surrounded by newspapers, trying to stay warm because there's a blizzard going on. Yes.
And then she stands up and she puts a coin in the payphone and calls her dad.
Yeah, and we hear her talking, and, basically it confirms what Jason told us. Don't worry, this isn't an abusive household. She isn't really unloved by her parents. You hear her going, oh, it's me. Yep, I'm okay. And it's just, camera cranes away, and we sort of understand, like, okay, it's a Merry Christmas after all.
Yeah, she just got gaslit by a therapist to go back to an abusive home.
Well, look, we don't, the show is telling us it's not, and that she was just unhappy. But we get, of course, the same basic overall message. Think about the less fortunate at Christmas. And we get the same, story beat we're going to see continue in various ways. We need to invite someone over to our house and have all kinds of awkward little, dancing around the sort of
we need to confront our own biases against people who don't have a place to live.
Yeah, exactly. And how they turn out to be nicer and more relatable than we thought. And let's continue with Saved by the Bell.
Season 3, episodes 24 and 25, Home for Christmas, parts 1 and 2.
Yeah, this is a big one for me. I've seen this many, many times. The image of Zack in that striped sweater, the sort of white, red, and green striped sweater, kind of just addressing the camera at the beginning. It's kind of burned into my brain. I think they showed this, I mean, like I've said before, all episodes of Saved by the Bell I've seen many times, but I think this is their only holiday episode.
Like proper. Well, and so that is so interesting that you say that you know this one really well. I was like, wow, I don't remember this episode really at all. Like, no. I know I've definitely seen it because I've, seen every Saved by the Bell episode 100 times, but this one was not one that got replayed very frequently. I don't remember this episode very much at all.
To me, it got replayed plenty, again, because they didn't have any other holiday episodes to play. What I started realizing as we begin the episode in Zack's living room, this set we've never seen before, or at least, we haven't seen it rewatching for the podcast. This is an era, this is my favorite era of Saved by the Bell. This is towards the end. You said season 3, but it all depends on whether you include Miss Bliss or all of that. But this is a point where there are several episodes like this where, for one thing, they're older, right? Zack and Kelly are no longer a couple. They're introducing different romantic interests for Zack. And they have these episodes that take place outside of the school, like the murder mystery episode we watched for our Murder Mysteries podcast, the All in the Mall episode that uses the same set as this, where they're in the mall the whole night. And when you asked me on our Saved by the Bell mixtape, which were my favorite episodes, those were the ones that I said. I think when I was a kid, I loved this thing of they're almost like the Scooby Gang, they're out in the world.
Doing other things.
Yeah, there's no Mr. Belding, there's no teachers, it's not that same hallway set again and again. Now it's like them out in these different situations, solving mysteries and whatnot.
Not in this one, but yeah.
No. Well, they're solving sort of a mystery. Who is the mysterious man that taught them how to tie a tie? Yeah, so it's all about them in the mall. In typical Saved by the Bell fashion, there are all kinds of details about their lives that come up for this episode and never again, you know, which granted they're seasonal.
Yeah, so they're, like you said, we start in the living room. We get to meet Zack's mom, who has apparently appeared on 2 other episodes.
Yes, I think I mentioned this just last week. Zack has very hilariously to me, he has a mom and a dad, but he never has both until the Wedding in Vegas final TV movie.
Yes,
that's the first
she
time. She
returns for that episode.
And that's the first and only time that you see his computer salesman dad or his job unknown mom be in the same place. Otherwise, he only has one of them. He has effectively a single parent, although in this episode, his dad is frequently referred to as being just out of town. So he has not changed his way. Saved by the Bell heads will know that early in the series, there's a whole episode about how his dad is too busy with his job as a computer salesman to hang out with Zack, and the only way Zack can get through to him is to call him on his cell phone. That's the reason why Zack famously has a cell phone before anybody else, is because his dad is this wheeling and dealing guy that carries around the cell phone. That episode ends with the dad saying, I will make more time for you. I won't be, totally preoccupied with my computer salesman job. Cut to 2 or 3 years later, Christmas time, dad completely absent from the entire 2-part episode.
He is on his way home. He is meant to be home in time for Christmas. He's supposed to get in that night. The night the episode ends, it is Christmas Eve. So, so we start in the living room, and everybody is just coming over to Zack's house after school because it is Friday, or whatever their last day of school is, before their 2-week winter break, and they're all very excited. Mrs. Morris comes in and she is asking all of the gang, like, hey, what are you doing for your holiday break? And everybody has a job at the mall except for Zack, who doesn't need one, and Lisa
works at the hospital as a candy striper.
She volunteers at the hospital.
That's been established in another episode.
And it also, she wouldn't need to have a job, right? She's rich. So, the 2 rich kids are the ones that don't have jobs, and everybody else is working this holiday holiday season at the mall doing different things. Jessie is taking
Santa's helper.
She's a Santa elf. She's taking pictures of kids, and
she gets stepped on and abused by the kids.
Yes.
That's like her little like sort of running bit. She frankly doesn't get much to do in these episodes. You know, that's her thing. She's a sort of tread upon Santa's helper.
Yes. Well, and so the mom says, "Oh, Jessie, I thought you didn't like kids." And she goes, "I don't, but they're going to pay me $8 an hour," which at that time, this is 1991, that's really good money. Kelly's working at a men's store, Mr. Moody's.
Yes.
Slater's a
gift wrapper. He's
presents.
very bad at it. That's the joke there. He's terrible at wrapping presents. And the main...
and Screech doesn't have a job either, right? He's just hanging out at the mall.
Yeah. The main focus of this is going to be Mr. Moody's department store,
Mr.
apparel
Moody's store for men.
Yeah. And so we're going to get... similar to the trope that we covered last Christmas, the Christmas Carol homages. We're going to get a little bit of a sort of inception here where we have the kids in the show are putting on a play of A Christmas Carol at the mall.
Yes.
And this 2-episode Saved by the Bell arc is going to be a sort of Christmas Carol homage itself, as Mr. Moody, the store owner, not unlike the store owner in the Barney Miller episode, is going to learn that homeless people are people too.
Yes.
And not be so much of a Scrooge.
Yes.
But let's get, this is a 2-parter. I have a lot of notes. So let's try to kind of, let's hastily go through this. They meet a guy in the bathroom that helps Screech. He helps him dry his shirt by using the hairdryer or whatever. And they sort of discover, oh, this is a homeless guy.
Yeah, he starts shaving in the mirror. Zach notices that he's shaving in a public space. Oh, he must be homeless. And he's seen him already check for change in the phone banks, like the payphones that are there.
This is a white 45-year-old bearded man, a very sort of like mild-mannered, very
seems like a dad.
Seems
like a dad wearing kind of, he's not wearing clothes that look like our Nancy Reagan,
exactly.
That's all like he's in a dumpster or whatever.
Yeah, he looks maybe a little bit like worse for the wear, but not much. And he's shaving, and Zach and Screech are like, the whole thing is Screech is saying all these faux pas, he's not getting it, and Zach is like constantly mortified by everything Screech says,
right?
And
so
is trying
Zach
to be all
balls
delicate.
Up some money and puts it into the change little area on one of the payphones and is like, "Hey man, you should check these these payphones."
This was a thing you used to do. I used to do just as a grubby little kid. I feel like people younger than us might not know, like payphones had the little change dispenser, and honestly, like 1 in 10 or 20 times there would be not even necessarily a quarter, but there would be some coin in there.
Yeah, some change that came out, because what would happen is when you would hang up the phone, the money would then drop in. Yeah. And sometimes...
Or money that didn't go through would just drop in.
Like sometimes, whatever your call was, if your call was only a dime, the change would come out if you put a quarter in, And so there was oftentimes change in there. So anyway, so he balls up some bills, stuffs them in there, and tells the guy to check it again as they're walking out of the bathroom. And we also see, before this happens, the guy almost passes out. He has like a minute, and he's like, "Oh, I just didn't eat any breakfast."
Low blood pressure, kind of like, stumbling
he's like,
around.
"Oh, yeah, I'm a little bit tired. I didn't eat any breakfast." And that's another time where, Screech is like, "Well, breakfast is the best meal of the day. It's the most important." And Zach's like, Stop. He's homeless, dude. Don't say that. And so anyway, so then the guys leave, and the man, he goes and checks the change thing like Zach told him to, and he Zach says Merry Christmas on his way out, and the guy's like, "Well, it will be now," as he's
Thanks
counting
to you,
the money.
son.
Yeah.
Yes. So they meet him. They separately meet Laura. They don't even get her name at first, but typical
they do
fashion.
get her name. Zach flirts with her right away,
well,
and
he
finds
says
out
I'm
that
Zack
her name.
Morris. She says I'm late for lunch.
Yes, but then she does say Laura, because when he goes on the search for her, he has everybody looking for Laura.
This show multiple times uses the joke of having somebody walk into a space and saying, I'm looking for a girl or I'm looking for a man, and then having somebody say some snarky remark. But yeah, Zack literally bumps into her in the cafeteria of the mall. She's in a hurry. She's all, short with him. I can't talk to you. See you later.
Drops her lunch, which turns out to just be an apple.
Yeah.
He's like, whoa, that's not enough. I'm thinking we're going to have a subplot here because I don't remember this episode and we've already met the homeless guy. So I'm thinking we're going to have a subplot here because her jeans are hanging off of her. She's very thin. I'm like, oh, this is going to be a bulimia episode or an anorexia episode as well.
She says she's on a diet.
Yeah, she's like, I'm on a diet.
And then Screech has the funny line later where Zach's like, there's something unique about her. And Screech goes, not really. All girls in California are on a diet.
Yeah.
But Zach is just like immediately smitten, mesmerized. And I mean, I guess they do a good job of, this girl is the female version of what we're saying about the dad. She's well groomed and, she's
a nice, mild mannered girl. She is mostly impervious to Zack Morris's trash bag charms, but not totally because he does win her over.
And the way that she's dressed and made up like the dad is enough to vaguely contrast these kids, all the affluent California people. You get that she probably doesn't have as much money as them, but she doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. Yeah, she's got the sort of TV version of not wearing makeup and sort of having plain clothes and stuff like that. So yeah, Zach's in love with Laura, the mysterious girl that we find out works with Kelly at Moody's store.
Zack and Screech are going all around the mall trying to find her, and then eventually they wind up in Moody's, and then there she is, and Zack is like, look, I want to take you out to lunch. Can I take you out to lunch? And she's like, I have my lunch, I'm fine. Yeah. And he's like, no, an apple isn't lunch. Come on, let me take you out. And she's like, no, I'm not hungry. And then, again, then he asks again, and then Kelly's like, hey, he's actually really a nice guy. And then Slater comes in and he's like, oh, he can be a pain, but like you should go out with him anyway. And then Screech comes in and basically says the same thing. So she's like, you've got some good friends. All right, we can go to lunch.
Yeah, they have their lunch date. Even though she says she's not hungry, she scarfs down all of his French fries. She's obviously very hungry. The whole, he's not making the connection yet. And then the sort of inciting incident of the episode is that, after they've gone their separate ways, her dad, we'll later find out his name is Franklin something or other.
Yeah, they call him Frank.
He passes out in the mall cafeteria.
Yeah, and she's gone back, or Zach's walked her back to work, and then he and Screech are back in the main part in the food court for whatever reason, and they see Frank again, and they exchange words, and they're like, "Hey, man, good to see you." Oh, there goes that guy, or whatever, and he walks past, and at this point, he's met Slater, and he's fixed one of the poorly wrapped presents that Slater has done, and Slater has thanked him by giving him wrapping paper and a bow. So all of this is to say that the money that he got from Zack earlier in the episode he didn't spend it on food. He spent it on a present for his daughter, and which we're going to find out soon enough who that is. But so the other thing that we forgot to mention is that in talking to Laura, when he's trying to ask her out, he mentions that he gave money to a homeless person that earlier in the day, and he's just hoping that it actually goes to food and not to booze. And that's what makes Laura be like, no, I'm good. I don't want to hang out with you.
Yeah, she says she lost her appetite. He says, you never know if they're a wino or worse. So that's a Saved by the Bell version of saying, like, yeah, he might be a crackhead. But he passes out.
Right.
Slater takes charge, even though there are like medical personnel on the scene.
Yeah, mall cops and everything.
Yeah, Slater's like, no, I know what to do. I learned this in my lifeguard training, raises his head, blah, blah, blah. And so he gets taken to the hospital. We get this whole sort of Saved by the Bell sort of celebration where all the cast go to, I think, a real hospital and hang out with real hospital kids, I think.
Oh, you think? I didn't think that was
definitely
true.
A real hospital, definitely real kids. I don't know if they're actually sick, but to me, it felt like it just had that vibe to me, like they went to a real location. It didn't feel like a set, but maybe not.
Yeah, it felt like a set to me, but you never know. And so, although you're right, they did have trouble getting their prop sleigh out of the back of the set. So you would think that if they built it, it wouldn't, like the counter wouldn't be in the way, sticking out in the hallway for them to leave. But so yeah, I loved this scene. Kelly's dressed up as Mrs. Claus in the most gorgeous red dress with white fur trim that I've ever seen. I'm like, you have not looked prettier. She also is wearing a bodysuit in like early, because this was at the time, the bodysuits that are like back in now. This is when we wore them back in the day in the early 90s when I was in middle school. Oh my gosh, bodysuits for days. Snaps in my vagina is all I remember of bodysuits, because that's where they snap. They're the worst things ever. And they always smelled like butt because they would ride up and then they started coming out again and all these kids are wearing them. And I'm like, ew. And they'll undo them. Like the kids at school would undo them in the middle of the day. And I'd be like, that smells like crotch. Why are you doing that? So nasty. Anyway, but I digress. Kelly was wearing a really cute bodysuit in this episode. So they're at the hospital and they've done their thing for the kids. And then they're like, hey, Lisa, do you know where the guy that got brought in from the mall
Doing
is?
their thing for the kids, by the way, includes making it snow inside the room. And they
That's
don't
what
explain.
made me think it wasn't an actual hospital, because clearly they had snow rigged above.
Well, that's the thing. In the world of the show, I don't know what they did. Like, it's magic. It's like Zack is magical.
Of course.
They don't explain how they make it snow indoors. It's just like Zack or one of the other teenagers goes to the little kid like, wouldn't you like a white Christmas? And the kid's like, but it's California. It never snows here. I wouldn't be so sure. And then it starts snowing. And then I think like, well, okay, now they're going to pan up and show like, oh, Screech is throwing fake snow on them. No, yeah, they just, at some point they pan out and show you like a regular room and there is no sort of mechanism to
Right, that's what made me think it was a set.
Well, it's what makes me think Zack has magical powers.
Well, we already know he's magical. He can see all of us sitting on our couches at home.
Yeah, but I feel like that breaking the fourth wall is different than making it snow indoors. But anyway, yes, this is going to be the midway point of our two episode arc, is when they go to visit their friend, the guy that collapsed in the mall. They discover that Laura is in there because she is his daughter.
Yeah. So that's end of episode, part one. Yeah. And then we get a really stilted recap where we find out about everyone's jobs again.
This reeks
and everything that they did again.
We have too much episode for one episode, not enough for two. So we're going to have, 6 of these 22 minutes be the recap.
Yeah.
But Zack invites Laura and Mr. Benton to his house for dinner. He says, my dad's out of town. My mom won't mind at all. His mom has already met them in passing in the mall as he's romancing Laura.
Yeah, she's invited Laura to be in the Christmas Carol retelling that they're doing as like a pageant in the mall. And she's asked Mr. Moody and he won't give her the time off. Anyway, so that's already kind of been established, him being sort of a grump and especially being really nasty to his employees. So they have dinner over at their house, at Zack's house. And then they are like, no, we're good. We have a place to stay. It's fine. And so we don't know where that place is. No. Like, I'm automatically assuming it's the car because we've already heard from them now their backstory. Like, Zack asks, like, so how did you wind up this way?
We get, this is the part where we get all of that trope of the little sort of jokes about being homeless and, oh, ha, 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 this is better than that, whatever. And he reveals, he lost his job. He couldn't find another one.
They were from somewhere in the middle of the country, Indiana, Ohio, some manufacturing town, and the plant closed down.
He says the computer plant closed down and they couldn't get the rent, and now he can't get hired because he only has one rumpled suit
and no address
or phone number. And meanwhile, we get Laura saying, people shy away from you when you're homeless. It's like it's contagious. So again, that same cognitive dissonance of like, on the one hand, this is showing, look, these are just normal people. They're not dangerous. They're not scary. They're not weird or anything like that. You should be nice to them and consider them people. And at the same time, it is just, like we keep saying, ignoring so many of the realities of many cases of homelessness and presenting it as this computer salesman that got a weird break and now he goes around the mall helping people wrap presents and stuff. And it's just, it just has this sort of Donna Reed's, like rose-colored thing to it.
Yeah, I mean, we have already kind of covered all that is to talk about that. The one thing I thought that was interesting about this, though, is that they do a father and daughter, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, they are sleeping in this tiny little, like Chevy Nova or some kind of gremlin, and that is their home for now. And, I think, again, this is not something that doesn't happen.
No, that's true.
You know what I mean? Like she's not wrong in saying that people shy away from you. Like she couldn't do sleepovers, right? Yeah. She couldn't invite people over to her house to have a sleepover and have a girls' night. It's hard to make friends when you don't have a home. There's what your friends are talking about, you don't relate to, and then they do have this nice moment then later on where she is, she's talking to Zack and she's like, the thing I really miss the most is just being able to close my door and talk on the phone to my friends.
Yeah.
Or listen to music.
Yeah. And Mark Paul Gosselaar is great in all these scenes where he's talking to her. And there's quite a lot of it over these 2 episodes. There's quite a lot of dialogue of Zack and Laura on their little dates, getting to know each other, him asking her, oh, why don't you do this? Ask Mr. Moody for that, yada, yada. And he does a really good job of playing this sort of like low-key kindness, awkwardness. He says, like she'll say something self-effacing or depressing, and he'll sort of come back with it with like, well, you're the prettiest bum I ever saw, or whatever it is.
Basically.
And Mark Paul really does a good job of like, he sells it, in these lines that are kind of cheesy. Like I think he does a really good job of conveying like, yeah, he's, for all the other episodes where Zack Morris is a sociopath, in this one, it's his function to actually be sensitive and caring and emotionally intelligent and sort of like be this person's support system.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, there are a few goals going on here. Laura wants to get this sport jacket for her dad so that he will look nice in job interviews.
Right.
And that's going to stir up all of this stuff because Mr. Moody won't give it to her as an advance on her salary. Kelly says, unbeknownst to her, well, I guess I could get it for her. I'll have it set aside, but Mr. Moody doesn't know about that. So that's going to cause a whole misunderstanding.
Yeah. So, and this, like, Kelly she doesn't get called out for it in this episode, but she's doing the thing of like meaning well, but actually causing problems, right?
Yeah.
So she, they're talking about the sports jacket and like you said, Laura wants to get it for her dad so he can have better interviews and have a nice look for interviews. And so when Kelly is saying, hey, just ask Mr. Mooney for an advance, she does that and he yells at her and won't give it to Laura.
Mr. Moody, we should say, is like this old character actor-y guy. I don't really recognize him from a lot of other things, but he is very much meant to be a Scrooge. Old white-haired grumpy
a total
guy.
Miser for sure. So then Kelly's like, hey, Mr. Moody, you were really mean. Don't you know that she just wanted to buy that as a present for her dad? He's like, they're homeless.
Yeah, she tells him that they're homeless,
and
which I had
like,
the same note like that. Like, how dare you?
Like,
that is the worst.
Help.
That's very
private
stupid
information.
Yeah, and you know that this guy is an asshole.
Right. And Mr. Moody immediately is like, she's a homeless? I wouldn't have hired her if I knew she was a homeless.
Yeah. Now, I have to say, again, to the credit to the acting, you're portraying it as a little more off the wall. Moody actually kind of, again, he sells this to me where when Kelly says, like, she's homeless, he looks at her like she's still in the store, like getting ready to leave. And he kind of looks over Kelly's shoulder at her, and he just gives this like kind of convincing performance of like, oh gee, I didn't know that. And so yes, Kelly has made a big mistake by revealing that, but he still lets her keep the job, but he's like, no, I'm not going to.
They steal. Now I have to keep an eye on her.
Yeah.
And is basically, we know the next beat is that he's going to fire her because he's looking for a way to get rid of the homeless person.
Yeah, Kelly's first mistake was telling Mr. Moody that Laura is homeless. Her second mistake is saying, I will buy this jacket, not pay for it, because she's poor too. She doesn't have money on hand.
She's going to pay for it at the end of her shift, but she wants to set it aside so she has the other like adult in the store.
Might have been easier if she just bought it then
right
and there.
then and there.
But no.
Yeah, but it's a normal thing when you work at a store to say, hey, set that
aside.
Set
it aside. Okay, fair enough. She does that. She has Marlene, her coworker,
this other grown-up
aside.
that's working at the store.
Yeah.
Set it aside. So then Zack comes in and sweet talks Mr. Moody and gets Laura to be able to be in the show.
They do the old, here's the plan, Mr. Moody. First, we're going to then we're going to
exactly.
Right? We don't get to hear what Zack is telling Mr. Moody, but he likes it. He's immediately sold.
He's like,
meanwhile,
all right.
Again, Kelly does not say, hey, Mr. Moody, you know that jacket that all the fuss was about? I bought that.
Right. It's not on the mannequin anymore. We have just a dress shirt hanging there without it.
Does not think to say that. So now the time.
Off they go to the performance.
Yes, the performance of A Christmas Carol, which has been completely reimagined. It is no longer a story about an old, greedy businessman that learns the error of his ways. Now it is all about a man whose wardrobe is revamped by Moody's Men's Warehouse, right?
There's multiple, they've, at every moment that they could, talking about Bob Cratchit being, well, he's a sharp-dressed man for a poor guy. He must shop at Moody's where they have good prices for everyone.
At first you think it's just product placement, but they revamp the whole arc of the story to be that Screech who is playing Ebenezer Scrooge in this crazy voice and accent that is actually less annoying than his normal Screech accent.
Okay, so we have to pause on this though, because we have every single one of our main characters in this Christmas pageant.
It's great.
And they are all doing a different British accent. And it is so awful to listen to.
Wow.
You got Jessie and she's like, oh yeah, but I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I've got to. And then you've got Lisa who's doing, not, because Lisa is then doing a very posh British accent. She's like, oh, Mummy, what are we going to do?
Lisa, well, okay.
Because Lisa...
They play multiple roles.
Yes, they play multiple roles, but while she is one of the daughters in the Cratchit family, she is doing a posh British accent. Then you have Mrs. Morris, who is playing Mother Cratchit, and she also is not doing a posh British accent, but she's doing this very like RP, very, the received pronunciation, very... round, everyone can understand her British accent. And you've got Jessie doing a horrible Cockney. She's like dropping H's in the wrong place. It's so bad.
My favorite is Slater as ironically Tiny Tim, sleeveless Tiny Tim.
Tiny Tim towering over Zack Morris's Bob Cratchit.
But then he does it like a Kiwi Australian kind of thing. His delivery when he goes...
Kiwi is different than Australian.
I know, but he goes... it sounds like either one of those to me.
It sounds like Australian.
He goes, Mummy, Daddy. As soon as he said
ridiculous.
That delivery has lived in my mind for decades.
Bad.
Yeah.
And then Laura comes in because now, she's playing the ghost of Christmas Present. She's got the best accent of all of them. I'm like, she got this role because she could do that accent. Like, that's why she got this role, because she's the only one that has a reasonable British accent. It is so ridiculous. And then later on, Lisa does a different British accent because she doesn't do a British accent at all
altogether
to play the ghost of Christmas Future.
The ghost Miss Christmas Future, who is really just the ghost of like fashion. version.
Yeah.
But yeah.
She's like playing herself. She's like, oh, honey, that doesn't look good.
Yeah. Zack has promised Mr. Moody that he has a plan that will double his sales. And that is why Mr. Moody has agreed to let Laura be in the show. And so Zack is just that confident that all of this product placement, having Charles Dickens's Christmas Carol be about Mr. Moody's department store,
and
is
Moody
going to double his
leaves
sales.
the store and comes to watch the show and is like, he gives it a standing ovation. He loves it.
Now,
it's great.
On the accent thing, what I wanted to say, though, was that not since the commercial for Screech's spaghetti sauce have we had the entire Saved by the Bell cast all adopt single nationality. But anyway, yeah, like you said, Mr. Moody is delighted. He goes back to his store. He finds the jacket missing.
Yeah, so Laura gets back to the store before him, and so that Marlene, or whatever the lady's name, can go on break. So he finds her there alone, and the jacket is missing. And that's why he's like, I knew it. I knew you would steal it.
He searches the receipts. There's no receipt for it. He calls the police. And so
and she takes off.
Yeah, Laura makes a break for it. She thinks they're not going to believe me.
The heat. No, she doesn't say the heat.
Again,
but
nobody's communicating to anybody. So Laura doesn't know that Kelly has bought the jacket and set it aside. Mr. Moody doesn't know that. Nobody knows that. Mr. Moody calls the police. He says, "This is Melvin Moody, and I'm in a bad moody. Mood. I always like that. And then, in typical fashion, this all gets all the misunderstandings get solved like immediately.
Quickly.
Kelly comes in before he even hangs up the phone and
makes
says,
him feel like crap.
Yeah. And so, not unlike Ebenezer Scrooge, he is going to have a change of heart. We catch up with the dad, Frank. He's sleeping in the car. They're looking for them. Zack and the gang. Where's Laura? She ran away. We can't find her. We have to tell her that she's not on the lam from the police. Where's Frank? We find them quickly. They're sleeping in their car.
Well, they couldn't find them quickly. We're meant to understand that the whole day has passed and they're just kind of giving up. Right, quickly for us. They're kind of giving up. They're going home and they're getting their Christmas tree because it's Christmas Eve and his dad's supposed to come in that night and they want to have the Christmas tree all set up for him. So at the Christmas tree lot, that's when they see somebody comes out from the store where the Christmas tree lot, like the little shed or whatever, and tells the car that's sitting there, hey man, you gotta go. You can't sleep here. People have to park so they can load up with their trees. And Frank gets out of the car and Zack sees him. And then that's how we know, they live in a car. And so Zack and his mom are like, nope, you're not spending Christmas Eve in a car. You're coming to our house. Everybody's coming over. We're gonna, put up the Christmas tree. It's gonna be a nice night.
Again, referencing the dad. Oh, just got another call from your dad. Guess he won't be here in time after all.
His flight's been delayed, but he'll be here tomorrow morning. Yeah. So we'll put the Christmas tree up and we'll get to celebrate with him in the morning.
And we get, not unlike Ebenezer coming with the goose on Christmas, we get Mr. Moody showing up with a special present. It's the sport coat that he is giving as a present to Laura, who in turn gives it as a present to her dad, so he can in turn in the future go on job interviews and get presents for her.
And in true Christmas episode fashion, like all of our episodes in previous Snowed In and a lot of our Christmas Carol send-up episodes that we did last year, we end with, we can't give you any presents, but we do have a gift for you. It's the gift of song. Yes. And they sit at the piano and they all sing Silent Night.
Yep. And we should say the dad has sight unseen over the phone invited them to stay with the Morris family indefinitely.
And he's like, but it might be up to a month before I can get a job. And they're like, we have room.
He says, we might wear out our welcome. And she says, well, Zack wore out his welcome years ago. So
but we let him stay.
So I will say, I'm just thinking now, maybe it's because this is about teenagers instead of children or adults, but in a lot of ways, to me, this is the most straightforward and sort of the least misguided of all of them.
And it's because we don't have this like lesson of like, oh, you know, those who are less fortunate, you blah, 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 blah. We get it, but we get it in a different way. It's actually how if you or I were to meet a person who doesn't have a home, like this would be the way that it would happen, right? And there's so much similarity where like she has a job because she's able to get, you know, as a 17-year-old, she's able to get kind of a low-paying retail holiday season job. And that is what is allowing them to eat this month, you know?
That's true. What I think of more, though, is from the point of view of like, they put their money where their mouth is pretty much from the beginning. There isn't any of this like, oh, you have to be nice to those less fortunate. Oh, no, we didn't mean that. We can everything is like,
it's not teaching a little kid a lesson.
Exactly. Because everyone sort of knows the deal. There is this sort of straight line between why don't you come have dinner? Okay, thank you. Now don't worry about us anymore. Oh, actually, it looks like you do need more help. Why don't you come live with us? And you don't see the NIMBYism. You don't see the like, oh my gosh, they're homeless. What are we going to do? You know, it is more, again, they do have that sort of naivete about the way the whole thing is presented, but in some ways it's minimal weirdness and the most sort of like...
because of that, because it isn't like the kid did a thing that was like uncomfortable.
No. Zack and his mom are actually on the same page the whole time.
Right. They're like, oh, this girl who works with Kelly has a dad who hasn't been able to like hold down a job or get a job. Okay, what can we do to like help this family get back on their feet? You know what I mean? Like they drove out to California in order to have more opportunities because they were in a town where the only work was a plant and it closed, you know, like they're doing the right things. That's the story you hear all the time, right? Like, oh, I came to the big city because I thought there was work here. And I found out there wasn't work, and also I can't afford to live.
Yeah, and again, Zack and his mom in turn do all the right things. So it's like the Family Ties episode we talked about last week, where Kelly is being a sitcom idiot. Kelly is doing all the things
that Screech normally does.
Yeah, besides, Screech is actually just staying on the sidelines for this. And like all the main characters in terms of the story are like pretty much like behaving in like real ways.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. This is a different sort of Saved by the Bell episode because Jesse, Slater, Screech, like they maybe have a few lines here and there, but they are definitely like extra
and
ancillary
Zack doesn't
characters.
Have a scheme. Zack's scheme is to like sort of flirt with her a little bit and get a kiss on the cheek at the end. Like he is really, he's a whole different person in the holiday season. All right, let's finish it up with Family Matters.
Season 6, Episode 11, Miracle on Elm Street.
Yeah, so you know what we have in this lineup, Amy? I think we've only had it once or twice before.
What's that?
A Screech versus Urkel situation.
Oh,
here.
yeah, absolutely.
And in this case, I feel like there's no contest. Screech really comes out looking better between these two episodes. We got him staying in his lane story-wise.
He was basically not in the episode.
Giving up any secrets, causing any trouble. He acquits himself pretty well in the play with his Ebenezer Scrooge performance. Whereas this is deep latter-day Family Matters, where poor Jaleel White is trying to do that squeaky voice.
Oh, yeah. He's like 17 years old. He's taller than everyone.
And he is not a squeaky voice guy at this point. It's painful. Like, he's not, when you watch
you can hear him talking through his nose like this, trying to make it happen.
He's got to be really extreme with it. You watch those early episodes, and Urkel talks normally. He's just like, hiya, Carl, how are you doing? He's just squeaky because he's a little kid.
Right.
And now it's just, he is a little bit of a monster.
Puberty hit him hard, and he, they still were using him as Urkel. I do disagree, though. I think that in this episode, we only really get one instance of Urkeling, and the rest of the episode, he's kind of just like a great guy.
I guess it depends on what you mean by Urkeling. We've still got the sort of, I think another reason why I like Screech in these two episodes is, there's no badgering of Lisa with his unrequited love thing, whereas with Urkel in here.
He wears the mistletoe hat and tries to make her kiss him.
Oh, yeah, I guess, yeah, I forgot about that. In this one, we have Urkel, doing a lot of good stuff, but it is all in that weird context stuff. Again, especially weird now that they're like 18 years old and he's just constantly like, I love you. And she's like, okay, Steve, thanks for doing that for me.
Well, I mean, look, nobody else would do what Steve does in this episode. I think that the storyline that Laura has is a little bit ridiculous.
Yes,
I think
Laura is a grade A brat in this episode.
I don't know about brat, but I think that it's just like, they should have written this storyline for Sister Judy that got written off the show years before.
Poor Sister Judy. I mean, look, little Richie doesn't have a ton to do either most of the time, so he could use a moment in the spotlight.
Although he is the one that we have the moment in this episode
where
this
is
invites
all about
in
him.
Our homeless person.
Yes, he's going to take the place. Look, at this point, Family Matters is basically two shows, right? It is primarily a vehicle for the slapstick of Urkel and Carl that we get at the beginning with the baking and covering each other with flour and all that. And then in its spare time, when it feels the desire, it is a family comedy about this working class black family that is dealing with various issues.
All right. Did you notice that Aunt Rachel is a guest star in this episode? So even Aunt Rachel at this point, season 6, kind of mid-season 6, is not a regular
Wow, okay. But little Richie
cast member.
He's still riding up in his tricycle in the opening theme song.
Yes. And I think she's in the opening credits still, but they had her credited at the end as guest
So she's in the main cast and guest star?
I think they just didn't change the credits.
Yeah, fair
but they
enough.
have her in here in the credits at the end of the episode guest starring as Aunt Rachel.
Yeah. So I can't even say the crux of this episode because really the crux is Urkel's adventures tracking down Laura's old doll that got accidentally put in the garbage, and so she's moping that Christmas is ruined because Eddie threw away her old doll with the donations and the garbage, and so Urkel is going to be searching the dump for that. But that's all kind of off to the side for the most part. It does involve Laura being kind of ungrateful and sort of self-absorbed. But yeah, Richie comes in. He's doing the usual, I want toys and video games and whatnot. Does he have a specific thing he wants for Christmas?
He just wants toys. He says, I've narrowed my list down to, I kept it under 100 this year.
Okay. And so Carl gives him the lecture. Carl's version of it is to say Christmas is about the ings. Right. Sharing.
Yeah. And
giving.
Not getting. Like when he said the ings, I was like, getting is an ing.
Any verb.
Right.
Killing. That's not a helpful
Christmas is about
thing.
killing.
But nonetheless, his message is extremely effective. And I have to say, on the one hand...
You only have 22 minutes, Jay. That's why.
Here's what I'll say. Like we mentioned before, on a visual level, this Family Matters is head and shoulders above all the other shows. It's shot on film. They have these nice wood sets for the house. Everything looks great. But
not like Zack Morris's living room, which is mauve on mauve on mauve.
Yeah, exactly. But because we're spending so much of this precious running time on Urkel's antics dancing with a dog at the city dump, we don't have as much time.
What are you talking about? He was just, that was so precious.
Yeah, he has a whole thing with the dog at the city dump. But what I'm saying is that we have to move things along quicker so we don't get, I feel like Jason in Growing Pains, like his lecture was a little more in-depth and persuasive than Carl's giving, caring, sharing. And then Richie is he literally says, I'm a greedy slime ball, is what Richie says.
And then everyone's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
You're not that at all. You just need to make sure that you're thinking about these things.
Yeah. And so he same exact routine as Ben on Growing Pains. He's like, all right, time to go out and play. And then minutes later comes back in with a homeless man
named Ben. Isn't
that?
I thought that was so funny. I was like, wait, we had Ben in the one, and then now we have this is Ben in this one. This guy looks kind of like the star of the Cosby Show that you never remember, Elvin.
I know this actor from the movie Trespass, where he also played a homeless man.
Oh,
it
look
was
at that.
a fun 90s action movie starring both Ice Cube and Ice-T.
All right.
And he had that same sort of energy, like just this guy, he's spunky. He's not standoffish the way that Denise was in Growing Pains, but he makes himself at home. He's audacious, right?
Right. He is like, hey, Richie invited me over. Don't worry about me. I'll make myself at home, getting some cookies in the kitchen, no problem. And while I'm waiting for you guys to finish your conversation, I'll wax your floor.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is he goes into the kitchen, leaving them, again, following the template, just like you said before. We need to have now the adults and everybody sort of be like, Richie, we didn't mean for you to invite a homeless person to have all of that sort of double talk. And so they say, again, trying to model, like, all right, here's the practical advice for what all you kids should know about. We're going to let him have dinner with us, and then we're going to call the homeless shelter. We're going to go through the proper channels. Remember, Carl is a police officer, and make sure that he gets the help he needs or whatever.
Right.
And then he sticks his head in and goes, hey, just to say thank you for dinner, I'm going to wax your floors. And Harriet's like, oh, maybe he could stay another few days.
Yeah. And Aunt Rachel is the same, because they're like, wow, thanks. So, yeah. And then I guess the next time we kind of see him, because then it cuts away and we get Steve at the dump,
Lots
and we
of
get some other
stuff.
And then, but when we come back, now we've got Carl and Ben in the kitchen. And I don't know if I think they're cleaning up from dinner
Very
or
funny
something.
joke. No, Ben is ironing.
That's right.
He goes, you guys have done more than enough for me. I'm going to be out of your hair as soon as I finish ironing this tablecloth.
Right.
And Carl goes, Ben, those are my shorts. Very funny sitcom-y joke. And yeah, this is fascinating to me. This is why we do the work, right? To see this Growing Pains and Family Matters have the same exact setup be like the same show for the first 15 minutes and then go in completely wildly different directions. We should have gotten the clue when the name of the episode was Miracle on Elm Street,
right?
Because Miracle on 34th Street is about Santa being real somehow.
Yes.
And so we start getting all this talk. Basically, Ben is pulling a Michael Jackson from season 2 of The Simpsons, if you remember that episode where Bart finds this mental patient, this bald, overweight white man who is voiced by the real Michael Jackson, who is just claiming to be Michael Jackson. And everyone just kind of plays along with it. And that this guy starts saying all these crazy things. Oh, I need to go visit all the children. I need to make sure everybody gets their toys.
Yeah, I can't stay again tonight. Thanks for inviting me for Christmas. It's a busy night for me.
First he says, yeah, I need to hit up all the houses. And Carl is like, do you really think breaking and entering is the proper solution?
Exactly. And he's like, oh no, that's not it. The children will miss their toys if I don't do it. And so then Carl's starting to pick up what Ben's laying down.
He says straight up,
he's Santa Claus.
Are you claiming to be Santa Claus?
Yeah.
And Ben says, yes, I am.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's like, I don't know. He's in his 50s or 60s. He's got a beard.
Yeah,
I guess he's vaguely Santa-esque, but
he's not big and round like you would think or anything.
It's an interesting choice that they're not making him particularly Santa-esque. No. They're making him he's not skinny. He's not super young. he could play Santa, but you would need to like do a little bit of making up. You would need to get a bigger beard on him.
Santa during the off season, although we are a couple days away from Christmas. So I don't know how, I mean, magic, right? He grows a beard that quickly.
I'm just saying it's different in that way from Miracle on 34th Street, where the guy actually looks like Santa.
And still nobody believes him. They think he's a crazy wino.
But
so Carl and Ben are having this conversation. Like you said, Carl asks him point blank. And then he's like, okay, all right, well, thanks so much for all the help around the house, all the ironing,
Carl says the
time
thing,
for you to go.
He says the thing everybody says when they don't believe somebody about something in an 80s or 90s comedy. He goes, okay, I guess I'll tell that to my friend the Easter Bunny, right? You always mention the Easter Bunny when you are like saying that something is fictitious.
That's right. And the Tooth Fairy.
Yes.
And so he's like, oh, I see. You don't believe me. Well, he's like, what about I remember Christmas 1958 and all you wanted was this astronaut helmet.
Commander Crash Dive astronaut helmet.
That's right.
And that is the fatal blow that leaves Carl speechless. How did he know that?
He goes, Ben says, I got your letters or I got your letter. I didn't forget you. That was a really big toy that year. And I ran out and I felt so bad. And Carl's like, gobsmacked and is like, how would you know that? How could you possibly know that?
Yeah.
And then Ben walks away and he's like, Santa?
Never to be. No, I feel like he's not on board with him being Santa yet. He's just perplexed at how he could have known that. And then we don't see Ben again ever at all.
Yeah,
right?
For the rest of the episode, that's
nor
it.
do we really address the issue of homelessness in any way.
No.
Like that whole aspect of the story just goes away. We get the wrap up of Steve coming back and presenting Laura with her doll that he found at the city dump. He also has a new dog friend named Howard and all of that. And then we get, predictably
There's an
enough,
extra present under the tree that, Uncle Carl, it has your name on it.
And here is where we see why Carl has not been promoted to like detective after his years on the force, because he's opening this box. Well, sure enough, it turns out to be the Commander Crash Dive astronaut helmet that he asked for in 1958. And he still doesn't seem to be making any connection to the man that mysteriously knew about his wish. Like he's going,
he did.
come on.
What are you talking about?
He doesn't let on at first. He's going like, come on, which one of you did this? And then it's only after
everyone says they didn't.
That he turns and sort of looks to the stars and says, thanks, Ben. And the audience applauds. And you and I laughed simultaneously, more so I think than we have ever in watching podcasts.
This was a really ridiculous episode. And we have watched some late Family Matters episodes before. And what was wild about them was also what was kind of good about them. Like I'm remembering in particular the one where Steve and Carl are in the garage trying to build shelves and put up shelves.
That was the one where Steve was on speed.
Yeah, he was on speed. And that was like the slapstick, the humor. It really played into their strengths. And that was very funny. And as wild and ridiculous as that episode was, like that part is very memorable and was really funny because of them. This didn't have any of that.
No, it's because
then we had a full song of We Wish You a Merry Christmas, complete with the Disney singers coming from the rafters from nowhere.
Yes, these unseen backup singers start joining them.
It's the whole cast standing around the piano, looking into the camera, just singing We Wish You a Merry Christmas. Like, that's how you know you don't have enough episodes.
Well, I think this was established from our friends at Mary Tyler Moore. These good sitcoms did that, and they sort of broke the fourth wall a little bit and are like, now we're serenading you, the audience, and now it's just sort of become this tradition.
Yeah, but it started as like they were singing together, and then they
being
came back
organic
from commercial and were singing to us.
I mean, look, lots of people sing at Christmas time.
This was so long.
Well, here's the thing. the episode that you're talking about, the drug addiction episode, that was a story that focused on Steve.
Right.
This is a story that focused on Richie. The problem is in season 6 of Family Matters, if you have an episode that is about a social issue or anything other than Steve Urkel, you have about 12 minutes of show to work with because the rest of it has to be devoted to Steve
But this is
breaking
what I'm saying.
things,
You could
throwing
have
food on people.
You could have devoted the 5 minutes you spent singing at us to wrapping up
Yes.
some type of like Ben comes back around with a twinkle in his eye or whatever.
Unfortunately, I think what you need to do at this point is have Steve be involved with the homelessness plot because that way everything can get more time because it's mixed together.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
but even with Steve, like we only had the one little, Urkelness at the beginning with the flower.
but then we got more of it at the dump. I feel like that was Urkeliness too. Him picking up a discarded nudie magazine at the dump and unfolding it and doing a whole like hubba hubba routine. Like you're telling me that's not Steve Urkel antics? Come on.
I think that's just any 90s show antics. So I wasn't too like, it wasn't Urkel being like Urkel, right? Like messing everything up, annoying everyone. He spent 16 hours rifling through the city dump trying to find the doll for the woman that he loved.
But I mean, what I am saying in all seriousness is that the show sets up 2 stories of the family having a homeless guy come over for dinner and Steve Urkel.
Surprised, by the way, is Santa Claus.
Yeah. And Steve Urkel rummaging through a dump to find Laura's old doll, and they had to choose which one to pay off and conclude, and they chose Urkel's story.
Right. Then if that was the case, if you wanted to, like, they didn't want to do anything with a homeless story. That wasn't what they were trying to do with this episode. They were trying to do Magic Santa. We meet a secret, the real Santa Claus. That's what they were trying to do with this episode. And that's the thing that they didn't spend enough time on.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's sort of the solution of the thing that we initially proposed, why these episodes are different, is that, yes, they share that same holiday theme of be grateful and don't take things for granted and stuff.
For about 12 seconds.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, exactly, the Growing Pains episode wanted to do a thing about teenage runaways, and this wanted to do a thing about Santa is actually real. Okay, homelessness at Christmas time in the world of sitcoms. What do we think? To me, it's a no-brainer, but which ones wore it best for you?
So, I mean, I think I said it a little bit, but I was just shocked. I'm not shocked because I wasn't expecting it, but I don't know. Barney Miller. As a show that I'd never seen before, I think this was a very late episode. This was a season 8. The writing was snappy. I enjoyed all of the performances. It's one that I'm like, I'd like to go watch more of these. So I'm going to be on the lookout for other Barney Miller episodes that fit some of our upcoming tropes.
Yeah, I would specifically recommend Barney Miller. Like if you're into those shows like WKRP or Taxi, even Mary Tyler Moore, those sort of older, those sitcoms for grown-ups that take place in a workplace or in some
mid-70s.
Yeah, and it has that vibe. It's not like super sophisticated or anything, but it is for grown-ups, and it just, almost like a night court. You get the impression. And certainly that was fun and interesting. But yeah, to me, this Saved by the Bell, like I said, it's lived in my mind forever. And again, it's fun in a different way than Saved by the Bell usually is. We don't have Zach scheming. We don't have Screech being annoying. We just, we do basically just have this sort of after school special about this homeless family.
Yeah, but they still do it in enough of a Saved by the Bell way that it doesn't feel like one of those after school specials that were sort of beating you over the head with the message the whole time.
And I think there was something as a kid that was just so, the thing thing of living vicariously through them, and that it's about these kids, even though his mom is involved, like everyone's so independent. It's all taking place in the mall and they have these jobs and they're doing this play. And it is one of those sort of aspirational things of like, oh, is this what it's going to be like around Christmas time when I'm 16, 17? I'm going to have a job at the mall and be in a play and maybe have a romance with a homeless girl like this. Like it's a lot to look forward to. But so that's it that was my favorite. But yeah, this was a fun lineup for exactly the reason we said, that they all sort of overlap in certain ways, but all had a different angle on it. Yeah. And just like that alcohol episode, it's like seeing them tackle this serious subject in a way.
Yeah, in 19 minutes or
it's
whatever
almost
they
like
have.
It's like watching your friend like go up to a girl at a bar and like you're watching him kind of like make a fool of himself, but he's also kind of doing a good job and you're in his corner. It's like these sitcoms are so sort of awkward and clumsy sometimes about how they handle these serious topics, and yet they do ultimately like sort of send the right message sometimes, and sort of leave these lasting impressions.
Yeah, I think the Saved by the Bell was the one for me that pitched everything like kind of exactly right. Mm-hmm. Also, they had more time to tell the story. They did take 2 episodes, right? So they weren't trying to rush through these story beats of like having kind of, tough kind of conversations in a way. And I think that's one of the reasons that we liked it as much as we did, because it was able to let things breathe. Yeah,
definitely. Yes. It's a very special episode, if you will.
Yeah.
All right. So much for befriending the homeless at the holidays. What are we talking about next week?
Next week, we're celebrating New Year's, Jay. We're going to watch Laverne and Shirley Season 3, Episode 12, New Year's Eve, 1959. Mad About You, Season 4, Episode 9, New Year's Eve. Frasier, Season 7, Episode 12, RDWRER.
I'm sure it'll all make sense in due time.
Okay, here we go. And finally, How I Met Your Mother, Season 1, Episode 11, The Limo.
Yep, next week is New Year's, and until then, we will declare this segment of the sitcom study concluded. Thank you for listening to the Sitcom Study. Tell us what you think or share your own TV tropes and topic ideas by sending a self-addressed stamped email to sitcomstudypodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram. And if you like the show, consider leaving a rating or review on your podcast app. It helps us boost those precious Nielsen ratings. The Sitcom Study is recorded in front of a live studio dog.